Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rucha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Numbers, the 24th chapter. And when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he went not, as at other times, to seek for enchantments, but he set his face toward the wilderness. So when Balaam realized that the Lord was fully set on blessing Israel, this time when he went there, he didn't go and try to perform any rituals or try to, go in the way of trying to use an enchantment to try and curse them, right? This time he just went, and as it says, he set his face toward the wilderness, which is where Israel had encamped. And Balaam lifted up his eyes, so he looked up and saw Israel abiding in his tents, according to their tribes, and the Spirit of God came upon him. So the Lord put a spirit on Balaam, and he took up this parable. So he basically prophesied, right? He spoke in the Spirit here at this point, and said, Balaam the son of Beor hath said, and the man whose eyes are open hath said, He hath said, which heard the words of God, which saw the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, but having his eyes open. And basically this is just emphasizing the fact that the Lord, opened his eyes, spoke to him, and gave him this message. How goodly are thy tents, O Jacob. So after seeing this, what the Lord showed him, or what the Lord revealed to him, he understood really just how blessed Israel is. And that's why he said, how goodly are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. As the valleys are they spread forth, for multitude, that is, as gardens by the river's side. And when you have a garden by the riverside, it's going to be very well nourished, because it has that river bank, that water right there. As the trees of line aloes, which the Lord hath planted, and as cedar trees beside the waters. Now, when you look up line aloes, they are, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's aloe wood. I think that's what it's here. Aloe wood. So aloes wood, also known as agar wood or eagle wood, is a dark, fragrant, resinous wood from Aquilaria trees, formed when they're infected by a specific mold, creating a rare and precious material used in incense, perfumes, traditional medicine, right? Spiritual rituals, and sometimes for decorative carvings. Valued for its complex, rich scent. It symbolizes royalty and purity, and its oil is a prized ingredient in high-end fragrances and spiritual practices, with the wood itself sometimes used in jewelry or prayer beads. So this was and he was likening them right onto this valuable tree or wood which the Lord had planted. He shall pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters. This is another way of saying that they're gonna be blessed beyond measure, right, and abundant. When you read this in the NLT, right, it makes it a bit clearer. Water will flow from their buckets, right? Their offspring have all they need. So they're gonna, like how David talked about how his cup runneth over. Okay, so this was him describing how blessed Israel is. And his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. Now, when you go into that, Agag is actually a sort of like how you have the title Pharaoh, or what's the other one? There was another one. There was Pharaoh, and there's another one, but it's basically like a throne name, right? So as Pharaoh was to Egypt, that's what Agag was to Amalek. Okay, so I know oftentimes when we think of Agag, we think of the king of Amalek that Saul spared, and we think of that as his name. But and it could have been, right, but the name Agag, or the title Agag, actually deals with type it in here. the king of the Amalekites, right? It says Agag was the name or title of at least 2 kings of the Amalekites, a people perpetually hostile to Israel, most famously the one spared by Saul and later executed by the prophet Samuel for disobeying God's command to destroy the Amalekites entirely. So and so at this time, right, the Amalekites were also known at this point, their kingdom or their empire, whatever they had, whatever form they had, must have been pretty well known, since Balaam is making this comparison here, that basically these people are so blessed that, their king, their rulers, they're going to be higher than even that of Agag, which is the title of a king of the Amalekites. And his kingdom shall be exalted, right? That's dealing with Israel. God brought him forth out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of an unicorn, right? So they were delivered out of Egypt. They're very strong, okay? Their might is unmatched. He shall eat up the nations of his enemies. That eating up is to devour them, which means to conquer them, and shall break their bones and pierce them through with his arrows, which signifies completely dominating and taking over. Now, mind you, Balaam is speaking in the spirit here, right? Remember, it said the spirit of God came upon him. So he's speaking through divine inspiration at this point concerning Israel. He laid down as a lion, and as a great lion, who shall stir him up, right? And this is like saying, with how ferocious they are, likening them onto a lion, a lion that has basically laid down. Who would dare to stir them up, right? Who would dare to rouse them up again, knowing what they're capable of? Blessed is he that blesseth thee, and cursed is he that curseth thee. So anybody that does well by you, that blesses you, will be good. But anybody that tries to come against you to curse you, they're going to be cursed. And when he said this, and Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he smote his hands together. So he clapped. Pop. All right, that's enough. And Balak said unto Balaam, I called thee to curse mine enemies. And behold, thou hast altogether blessed them these 3 times. We went to this place. I said, curse them. You came back and blessed them. I said, okay, let's go to another place. I said, curse them. You came back and blessed them. And now we come to the other place, and yet you're blessing them again. Verse 11. Therefore now flee thou to thy place, so you can go. Leave. Go back to your place. I thought to promote thee unto great honor, but lo, the Lord hath kept thee back from honor. So you want to talk about the Lord says this, the Lord says that. Well, I was going to make you rich. I was going to make you powerful. I was going to give you status, whatever you want. But now all that is gone. You ain't getting that. And Balaam said unto Balak, spake I not also to thy messengers when thou sentest, which thou sentest unto me? So didn't I tell you, right? Didn't I respond to your messengers when you first sent them, saying, if Balak would give me the house, or give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the commandment of the Lord Yahweh to do either good or bad of mine own mind. And what the Lord saith, that will I speak. So he's like, you acting like I didn't tell you this from the jump, that whatever the Lord says, that's what I'm going to say. So you're getting mad that I didn't curse them. I told you that if he says I can't curse them, I can't curse them. And now behold, I go unto my people. Come therefore, and I will advertise thee what this people shall do to thy people in the latter days. So he's saying, all right, I'm going to leave. But before I go, I'm going to give you a little insight onto what they're going to end up doing to your people in the latter days. And here he basically prophesies, right, concerning what's going to happen in the future. And he took up this parable and said, Balaam, the son of Beor, hath said, the man whose eyes are open hath said, he hath said, which heard the words of God, and knew the knowledge of the Most High, right, because the Lord revealed certain things unto him, so he can play this role, okay? Just like the Lord put the Spirit on Cyrus, so he can play a role in commissioning us to go back and rebuild the temple. It says here, which saw the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, but having his eyes open. Right, so the Lord, revealed messages to him, revealed certain things to him, opened his eyes where he saw the angel, right? And all these different things. And that's basically what he's saying, right? Or prefixing whatever he's about to say with. Verse 17, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. And who is this referring to? This is referring to Yahushua. Okay, that's why he said, I will see him, but not now, and behold him, but not nigh, right? Meaning he's going to come, but it won't be right now. And that is that star. In fact, when you go into, what is that? I think it's in Matthew or so. At the birth of Yahushua, what did they say? Yeah, Matthew 2:2, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. And this was referring to the wise men saying this concerning Yahushua's birth. Okay, it says, and a scepter, which represents a ruler, shall rise out of Israel. Now, many rulers did come out of Israel, right? But who is the ultimate ruler out of the nation of Israel? It's fulfilled in Yahushua. And shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy the children of Sheth, meaning that Israel would eventually, right, being led of the Lord, which there were points in times where we did have the Moabites in subjection under us. But this will be ultimately done, right? The scriptures mention how we're going to have them as a washpot. This will ultimately be fulfilled when the Lord comes back and leads us, right, into conquering and taking over, not just Moab, right, but also all of our adversaries. So it mentions he shall and smite the corners of Moab and destroy the children of Sheth. Now, when you when you actually look up this name concerning the children of Sheth, let's look into that here. It says Shath or Shatha, seat of body. It also says here the meaning is tumult. And when you look into the Jacinius Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, right, it says tumult, the sons of tumult of war, i.e. the tumultuous enemies of Israel. Okay, so that would represent, not like it mentions Moab, but really also all the other enemies of Israel. Okay, they would be smitten as well. And that's because in the last days, right, being led by Yahushua, we are going to gain dominion, not only over just Moab, but really over all of our adversaries. And Edom shall be a possession. To who? To Israel. Seir shall also be a possession for his enemies, and we are considered their enemies, and we're going to take them over. And Israel shall do valiantly. So he saw this, and he was prophesying concerning this. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. Right, and like I said, you have many rulers that did come out of Jacob, but the ultimate one that's going to have the ultimate dominion is Yahushua. Okay, and those that remain, the remnant, those that would not bow down or subject themselves onto us or onto the reign of the Lord, they're going to be destroyed. And when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, so when he looked at Amalek, this is what he had to say concerning them. Amalek was the first of the nations. Now, when you go into that word first, it goes into chief, okay, or head. But his latter end shall be that he perish forever. And remember, he said this is what's going to happen in the latter days, right? He started off with Moab. Now, when you look at Amalek today, they are considered, well, one, the chief tribe of the nation of Edom. But really, when you look at the nations on the earth today, they're in that chief seat or position, okay, in these latter days. And that's why they're the ones pulling strings behind the scenes, running shit, and nobody can really touch them. However, their judgment, right, his latter end shall be that he perish forever. And they're going to get Obadiah 1:18. And he looked on the Kenites, and the Kenites are the those of Moses's father-in-law. And remember that Moses had convinced them to go travel with Israel, right? So it says here the Kenites or Kenite Smiths, the tribe from which the father-in-law of Moses was a member and which lived in the area between southern Palestine and the mountains of Sinai. So concerning them, he says this. It says here, and took up his parable and said, strong is thy dwelling place, and thou puttest thy nest in a rock. So your dwelling place may be secure, right, and protected for now. Okay, as he says here, then he looked towards the Kenites and delivered this message: your home is secure, your nest is set in the rocks. Nevertheless, the Kenite shall be wasted until Ashur, which is Assyria, shall carry thee away captive. So he basically then prophesied concerning the captivities, right, that would befall, those that he mentioned on here, right, in the future, from at least when he was prophesying it. So when you go into, well, when you read this, I think it reads better, for example, in the NLT or in the NIV, right? It says, but the Kenites will be destroyed when Assyria takes you captive. Or in NIV, it says, yet you Kenites will be destroyed when Ashur takes you captive. And that was referring to when the time of the Assyrians, right, when they would come up into power and basically take dominion, right, of that region. And so including those of the Kenites, obviously not all of them, but they would be affected or subjected under the rule of the Assyrians. Verse 23, and he took up this parable and said, alas, who shall live when God doeth this? So basically, who can stand, against this? Be seen that the Most High has planned this in motion. Because remember, the Lord revealed these things to him. So when you read the same verse again, right, in the NLT, it says, Balaam concluded his message by saying, alas, who can survive unless God has willed it? Or in the NIV, alas, who can live when God does this? Verse 24, and the ships shall come from the coast of Shittim or Chittim, and shall afflict Asher or Ashur, and shall afflict Eber, and he also shall perish forever. And this is once again also prophesying about the captivity, because when you deal with the ships, right, from the coast of Chittim, when you read in Daniel 11, for example, that is in reference to the Romans, right? It's likened on to the Romans. But, generally speaking, that area of Chittim, which is Cyprus, was also like a good docking station, right, for a lot of the Western powers, Western from the actual region of Israel. Okay, so those coming from the West, for example, like the Greeks, right, which they also would be applicable here, and the Romans as well, they, as it says, shall afflict Ashur. Ashur being Assyria. Now we know that the Assyrian Empire fell to the Babylonians, okay, but the Assyrians, okay, which the Babylonian ruling class were Assyrians, but the Assyrians and their territories and domains eventually was assimilated or taken over by the Greeks, and then ultimately by the Romans. So when you read above, he prophesies about basically the Assyrians coming in power, right? And then he prophesies about the ships that will come from the coast of Chittim, which will refer to the next empires or powers that will come from the west of that Aegean, starting with the Greeks and then the Romans, and how they would afflict, as it says, Ashur, and afflict Eber. Okay, and we know who are the descendants of Eber. You have a lot of different people that come from Eber, but you also have those of Israel, okay, that come from that line of Eber as well. And guess what? We also were subject under the Greeks and the Romans. And he also shall perish forever, all right, which is dealing with those, as it says here, whose ships shall come from Chittim, because for a period of time they would have this dominion, but they also are going to go down. And they were primarily, okay, I'm not going to say every single one, but primarily Esau, Edomites, because you had Edomites that took over the original Greeks and the original Romans. So though they would rule for a period of time, all right, and afflict us and really the known world, they would then be taken down. Okay, verse 25, and Balaam rose up and went and returned to his place, and Balak also went his way. So he pretty much prophesied concerning the blessing, concerning Yahushua, concerning once again the blessings of Israel, but also even the captivities. And like I said before, Balaam wasn't anybody special in the sense of, because you have certain Israelites that'll try to read it and say, oh, look at the way the Lord dealt with him. He has to be, has to have a special place. Nah, because the Lord, he ended up getting slain anyway when we as we'll read when we get there. So he wasn't an Israelite. He was a heathen, but one who the Lord had selected to play this role, all right, in this story here between Balaam and Balak. And that brings us to the end of the book of Numbers, the 24th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kudash. And until next time, Shalom.